My intention today is to share the story of our 5-hour workday that we've been doing for 5 years now, in hopes that it'll really help some other people think about how they work on a day-to-day basis and allow them to spend more time doing what they love.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.
All right. Well, hope everybody's having an awesome day today. Welcome to Student of Intention. This is your little corner of the internet where we spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery. As you can tell, this is not Bobby today. My name is Alex Gafford, and I'm just super grateful to have the opportunity to host the Student of Intention podcast today in place of Bobby, he's really spending the better part of this month focusing on writing and, of course, promoting his book he just released, The 5 Buckets, I have right here. If you haven't already picked up a copy, I encourage you to do so. It's a quick and easy read, just full of applications you can put into practice immediately. It has a lot of fun anecdotes about Bobby's journey to discovering the intentional life and kind of how he formulated the 5 buckets framework. Real quick background on myself. I am part of the Student of Intention community. I worked with Bobby at my first company right out of college, and we recently connected over the past year and really hit it off. I was an honored guest on this podcast this past summer, and when I had the opportunity to speak about the learning bucket. Had an absolute blast on the show. Bobby and I had an opportunity to really geek out and have a lot of fun talking about our mutual passion for reading. We talked a lot about our methodology behind how we pick apart books. It was really fun. I learned a lot from that discussion, and I hope you'll learn even more today when we dive into our discussion with Dave Rhoads. Super excited to introduce himself to you. It's gonna be a little bit different show than what you're used to in previous episodes. I want to kind of present this big idea I want you to think about. How some manage to live exactly the way they want, while others just dream about it. And Bobby actually had a quote along these lines: live like nobody's watching. You know, it's like a play on dance like nobody's watching. I believe today's guest, Dave, fits into this idea perfectly. We'll get to hear in his own words how he does manage to live his life the way he wants to. But first, here's a quick story I want to share with you. As customary, we always share a story from this past weekend about an intention. So my wife was actually out of town for 3 days, and I was with all 3 of our kids over the weekend, and that's a major undertaking for myself. I have a 2, 3, and 5-year-old. So these are really challenging ages. It's a blast, had fun with them, but I did not set any specific intentions over this weekend for myself. Just didn't think I would have much downtime. My oldest daughter had mentioned that she wanted to try hot cocoa for the first time. She heard about it from some friends at school, got my other daughter and my son stoked about the idea. And so in my mind, I immediately made this intention that if I don't accomplish anything else this weekend, I just want to make sure that my kids try hot cocoa for the very first time. So Saturday rolls around, and I plan to go over to a buddy's house. He's got 3 friends that are 3 children that are similar age that are friends with my kids. And I'm talking to him on the phone before I head over there, and just kind of casually mentioned, hey, do you know any like fast food places I can pick up hot cocoa? I want them. My kids have never tried it. And he's like, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that. And we pull in to his house, and in his driveway he had a table set up in the driveway with a jar of hot cocoa mix. He's got a big pan full of warm milk, and he's got all these mugs lined up on the table, and he's making, it's like a hot chocolate presentation, and the kids were just ecstatic. They, of course, loved the hot cocoa. His kids were enjoying it, and it was just such a small intention that had a huge impact on my kids. It even was really a great opportunity for my friend, too, to kind of show how much he cares about our family. So it was, I didn't know this until later, but right after we got off the call, he immediately drove to a market right down the street, bought some hot chocolate mix, drove back home, and started to set up everything to surprise us. So it was a kind of simple intention, really sweet story that illustrates how just by being intentional, just with something as little as a cup of hot cocoa, has a big difference. We asked our kids at the end of the weekend what their high and low was, and they all said unanimously their high. Their favorite part of the weekend was hot cocoa, of course. So it was fun. So want to go ahead and dive into our discussion with Dave. Let me introduce you to him. So Dave Rhoads is the CEO and founder of Blue Street Capital. It's a company that specializes in financing in the technology sector. Dave is an entrepreneur, a dedicated family man, a mentor. He's a teacher / coach and an avid surfer. I will even say that he's a student of intention. He may agree. I've worked for Dave for almost a decade. He's taught me really everything I know about the commercial finance space. He has also personally coached me, taken the time to kind of lay out his methodology behind goal setting, energy management, time management, and just teaching me how to look at things from a really high level, which has positively, it's absolutely had an effect on all aspects of my life. So want to just go ahead and jump into this discussion with Dave. We'll start off with, I know you're going through a pretty exciting move right now. You're moving the corporate office to a really nice space. I work remotely, but I was out in California a little over a month ago and got to see the space before you had moved in. So how's that going? You must be super excited.
We're super excited. We've moved the business 4 times since we started the company in 2004. But this stint has been nearly 11 or 12 years. And, in our old office, when we took that office on, I think it was coming out of 2008, 2009, and we had scaled down to 5 employees. And so it was really an office, maybe for 6, 7 employees at most. And, we're scratching 30, 35 and on our way to 40 employees now. So it was long overdue. So it's always exciting to get a new physical space. I kind of wondered, in the wake of COVID, how we're going to handle this. And I think we have a really cool hybrid work environment that'll carry us for a good amount of time here.
Yeah, it's so cool. And the office kind of reminded me of like a Silicon Valley-esque kind of office where it's real modern, has a lot of glass windows. I think that will fit really nicely into the tech space that you operate in.
It's a cool creative space, which is common here in California, but not, we haven't had a cool space like this. So it's great.
Yeah, that's so cool. So your intention was intriguing. I think the listeners will find this story really interesting. The 5-hour workday. Would love to hear the story from you, maybe going all the way back to where did this idea come from? And it's super interesting. Yeah.
Well, I don't feel like it's a new idea, but every time I kind of tell the story, I feel like maybe not a lot of people have heard about it, because when we started doing it, we were doing a lot of PR and a lot of marketing around it. We wanted to use it as a tool to not only retain the employees that we have, but also bring on new employees was a main focus. And we've been successful in it. It's almost kind of been, this is just how we do things. So we forgot that how impactful it is, or how cool it is. And I think even better that we've been doing it for over 5 years and have, quadrupled the company since we started this. So, but just historically, we went back and, at the time we worked a fairly typical workday in California. Everybody gets going around 7:30 or 8, and we'd work till 4:30 or 5 every day. And we kind of took a look at what our employees were doing over the course of the day, myself included. Is, everybody get in, call it 7:30. Everybody go across the street to Starbucks and go get coffee, get settled back in. And, usually people would be humming along by 8 o'clock. So there was a half hour that was gone there. Maybe a couple breaks over the morning. Maybe there's another half hour there. Lunchtime, just call it an hour. That doesn't include the time that you're talking about where you're going to go to lunch, or the time when you get back from lunch, talking about where you went to lunch. So I feel like in an average workday in our current working conditions, and this is just our own experience. I would think maybe some other companies have this as too. By the time you're done with lunch, it's almost 2 hours right there, right? So you just take an average workday, 2 hours, 8. That's 6 hours. A couple more breaks over the afternoon. Everybody kind of hits the end of day. You're fried by the end of the day. And I think easily right there we're at 5 hours. So our gamble was that if we just took our day, condensed it, cut out the lunches. We still encourage breaks, 10-minute breaks over the course of the day here and there. So you're not redlining all day. But we knew if we had that focused 5 hour time, we would get way more done than we did over that 8-9 hour period. And, Alex, you were a big part of it, and you're a big part of driving it and continuing to see it work. But I know full well, we get way more done now than we did when we were on an 8-9 hour day. I mean, we had people working 12-hour days. We had people, sending emails at 2-3 in the morning. It was crazy, but in our kind of hyper distracted world, which is increasingly getting crazy distracted. We just thought this was a really good tool to help us stay focused for a specific amount of time.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it's almost like the 5-hour workday was the mechanism that forced us to innovate and get real tight on planning our day and using our time wisely, as opposed to, like you illustrated earlier, going across the street to have Starbucks, taking real long breaks, and just kind of wasting time on our cell phones. The work culture, it's the opposite of that, right? So it's get to the office, maximum productivity for 5 hours, and then at 1 o'clock you leave and have a late lunch. And then let's talk about the flip side of that coin. You've got productivity now, better productivity because of 5 hours. That means that you've got 3 hours compared to the traditional 8-hour day that you've just given your employees. So these are salary workers. So you've effectively given everyone a raise. Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
That's right. One story that comes to mind, and I haven't told this much, but the company I worked for before I founded the company they were in the similar type industry. And I remember we had a day in the summer, we call it Surf Tuesdays. So we just say, hey, if we'll come in early, get all our stuff done, and just haul ass the whole day until 2 o'clock, and then we'll go surf the rest of the day. We'll go down to, Trestles is a big spot here in Orange County. So every Tuesday we'd come in, we'd be fired up. We'd have the day planned. We would be super focused, and we would do really well. We'd make more calls and we'd do more in that day than any other day of the week. And we were in a positive mindset while we were making those calls, which is way more impactful than, the drudgery that you can get in a, 9-10 hour workday.
You were having fun.
And we're having fun. We knew we were going to go home early. We knew we had a lot to look forward to after. So that was kind of a gamble behind the concept. Or, another thing that comes to mind, for people that have been in charity golf tournaments, usually they start around lunchtime, right? So you can get into work at, a little bit early, and you get more done. Every time I've done that, I get more done in that short amount of time than I would over a normal workday. Because one, I'm usually planned ahead of time. Two, I'm only focused on my highest priority for that. I don't really have time to, deal with all the reactive stuff that comes at you. So
yeah, I've got a pretty cool quote that goes along with that from Gary Keller, is the founder of KW Real Estate, it's the biggest real estate agency in the world.
Yeah.
The one thing he called it the day before vacation miracle. That's what he referred to that mindset. He said the day before vacation, you're super focused to be buttoned up, get done so you can get out of town early. And when you look back at the day before vacation, it's the day before vacation miracle, because you end up doing twice as much work in half the time.
That's right.
And so what you've created is something where you do that every single day. So every single day is like the day before vacation miracle, or the surf Tuesday, or the golf charity golf Friday, but every single day. Right. So that's just
cool. And out of the gate, that was very easy to replicate that. But with all things, right, we get a sense of entitlement. We kind of think, oh, this is the way it always is, and so we saw some fall off, right? We lost some employees that weren't fitting into that mold. We lost some employees that still wanted to work 67-hour work weeks. So there was some fall off there, but we also had to really ingrain it into the values of the company what the value that we use is, and this, Alex, is drive, right? It's right. You gotta be hustling, you gotta be driven, which really is just ambition. It's just doing that ambition a lot faster.
You have to be really hyper focused on your plan for the day. You have to be intentional. I'll use the word. You have to be intentional. We're students of intention. You have to be intentional about your day. You can't just show up to work with no plan and expect to get everything done in 5 hours and crush the day. And it kind of goes into kind of a segue into kind of how your methodology, the culture you've built, has largely been successful around personal coaching. I mean, I don't know how rare it is that the CEO is willing to do one-on-one coaching and mentoring on personal development. And this isn't just work, more of it is being intentional in all aspects of your life, family, health. It's very similar to the 5 buckets. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I fully believe that team actualization, right? Helping our team become the best that they can possibly be, will allow them to be the best they can possibly be at work. So, focused on, energy, right? Which usually starts the night before, is a very, very big goal of our company, and to always be talking about that with people, because a person that's showing up at their best, it's to me, it's the right thing to do, and it's the most profitable thing to do at the same time. Yeah, and it's cool when those two kind of line up.
Yeah. So what you have is you've created a work culture where people are happy and having fun because they get rewarded with all this time off every afternoon that they can go surfing or playing golf. But the result is, when you go surfing, playing golf, spending time with your family, getting caught up on hobbies that you love, you end up being healthier, right? So you've got that health bucket that you're hitting, and you're having a more active day. So you're sleeping better, you're eating better, right? Because you actually have time to meal prep and be intentional about your diet, as opposed to working 5 hours, being stuck in traffic for an hour, getting home so late that you end up picking up fast food because you have no willpower left at the end of the day. So you've created this kind of happy, healthy, fun work culture that then fuels that drive, as you called it, at work.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're aiming for. And that's why I feel like, really, really, really coaching and helping people in all areas of their life, it's important, because not everybody has the disciplines in place to really be that productive the rest of the day. It's they some people need that, those work constructs, right? In order to stay focused and to stay disciplined. So that's why, we spend a lot of, I personally think about and try to spend as much time as I can in developing people.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I feel like as businesses, that's where we can really add the most value to people. I mean, we can teach people about their careers, we can teach them about their jobs, but a person who's well rested, who's energized, is going to perform way better than somebody who's stressed and has anxiety and just totally innervated. It's take one of the two. It's you don't need a spreadsheet or an ROI to figure out which one's going to do better.
Yeah, I love it. And this whole mindset is what got me interested in the student of intention. It gives me the time to have enough time in my day, because everything else productivity wise is so focused and planned, that I have time to host a podcast, just as an example. And I've done all these other additional, just life-changing things on the side that I never would be able to invest. I would never have the time to invest in if I was working a traditional, 8-hour work day and just kind of exhausted at the end of the day. So I really like that.
Also, what was important to me too, Alex, and I when I had kids that were your age, right? I have 3 teenagers, but it's you're starting to get into that kind of those little league sports where you're going to be, you run around a lot more. And when I was doing that and I was working, full 50, 60 plus hour work week, even, being a business owner, I could go to their games when I wanted to. I could show up at practice when I wanted to. But when I did, I was always like full throttle to get there. And when I'm there, I'm on my phone. It's just, I wasn't fully present, right? I wasn't being very intentional about when I go show up for my kids, and, kind of getting this space from work really, in hindsight, would have been a huge, huge benefit.
Would you even say you felt guilty? I mean, I remember if I ever had to do anything in the afternoon during working hours, I almost felt guilty. Like I should be working right now, because everyone else in the office is working.
Yeah. Always. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah. So another interesting thing that happened when you launched this 5-hour workday, it was originally an experiment, right? 3 months. The way I remember it is, so I was at the headquarter office in Huntington Beach when this was launched. And the way I remember it was, Dave and the management team walked into the conference room in the afternoon, and it was like an all hands meeting. Everyone in the company was in the conference room. We had no advanced notice. We didn't know anything about it. And Dave's just like, we're going to switch from working traditional 8-hour days to 5-hour days for the next 3 months. It's an experiment. We're going to give it our best shot. I have a lot of trust and faith in you that you can make it happen and be more productive working 5 hours. And this is why. And this is how we're going to do it. And that was the introduction. And and as a result, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be an experiment. It was in the summer. People, like you said, people take off early to go surfing in the summer in Southern California. And I think a lot of us thought, this sounds awesome, but it's kind of too good to be true. We're not sure if it's actually going to work. So let's just enjoy this 3-month experiment. And what happened at the end of that 3 months? Can you talk a little bit about that first 3 months?
Yeah, I mean, all of our KPIs went up, right?
And KPIs are key performance enhancers.
Key performance indicators. Yeah,
so our
business, right? Our business scorecard, all the numbers that we track went up. 16. The first quarter of 16, Alex, I don't know if you remember, it was brutal for us, right? We had to cut everybody's salaries back 20%. because our forecasts were so low. We at the time we were trying to do some changes in sales management that didn't work out too well, and basically, yeah. So that first quarter of 16, we had to really work hard to kind of get things back in line. So, as we did in that second quarter, we reestablished everybody's salaries at the time in a fairly short order, but it took a lot of hard work to get there. So as we got the numbers back in line, we kind of applied, this 5-hour workday very, very closely after. And I mean, what we saw on our key performance indicator, our scorecard was, all sales activity was up, all new opportunity creation was up. It was just across the board. So we decided, hey, let's continue this experiment. And sometimes I feel like we're still in an experiment. We're still students about
Absolutely.
it, right? We're always learning. And the more we go, right, the more as we bring people on and they come into the 5-hour workday, and that's why they're here. We always got to be careful of entitlement and really, trying to remind people that, it's not okay to come in at 8:05 when you're working a 5-hour workday that starts at 8. The Vince Lombardi quote, right? If you're 5 minutes early or 10 minutes late is we can't ingrain that enough in people. So, when they do come in, they are going really hard at 8 o'clock and they are going really hard through the finish line. And frankly, Alex,
Right.
it's the other gamble is nobody really stops working, right? It's, you're just, if you're a performer and you're an A player, you don't turn things off in your mind. You may have your phone off. You may be at dinner, but it's always kind of running in the back of your head. And so to me, that's work. And that's sometimes the most important work.
Yeah. Such a cool story that you saw such great results in such a short amount of time. And I would agree. It's an ongoing experiment because we're continually having to innovate and find ways to test those limits of how productive you can be in a very short amount of time. I ran the math. So if you compare a 5-hour day to an 8-hour day,
Mm-hmm.
you have accumulation of 3 months of 8-hour days, of 8-hour work days. Basically 3 additional months of free time is freed up. So you're giving your employees 3 months of free time compared to a typical 8-hour, 40-hour work week. If you take someone that's been doing this for 4 years, that's a whole year. So I've been doing this for more than 5 years on this 5-hour workday. So that means I have well over a year and 3 months, a year and 4 months, something like that, of additional free time without not even touching vacation time, right? So this is just additional time. So I take it very serious, and I have to be very intentional about how I use that free time in a positive way instead of using what your word was, entitlement, I believe, where, I work here, I deserve 5 hours. And so if you don't produce, you got to produce great work in 5 hours for this model to make sense. So it does take a certain drive, a certain personality, but it sounds like it can be taught.
It takes an entrepreneur within an entrepreneurial company, right? It's, I mean, Alex, you're not to your horn, but you're a perfect example of it, right? It's like you produce the results consistently year in, year out with us, but you also are on the board of your homeowners association, but you also you own homes all over Oxford. You have your kind of own, mini monopoly going there. You're a very present dad to your kids. I know you're an amazing husband to your wife. It's like, to me, this is exactly why we're doing it, because, we want the whole person at work, and to, bring the whole person, we got to take care or do our best to try to take care of the whole person.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But that's definitely, it's a side effect of having that free time. So again, that's why I take it very serious. I'm very intentional about planning. And that's why I really, really appreciate the coaching. And I know a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are different types of consultants and coaches and people that teach others. So that area is really interesting to me, and that can go really deep, right? You read a lot. You are constantly learning, and when you learn new ideas that help with kind of optimizing our day, our health, whatever it is, you share that with us.
Any chance I get, almost to a fault probably, where stuff tends to get missed. But yeah, I never want to lose the opportunity to kind of share something that's been helpful for me. And that's always a place I've come from is, hey, this is something that was really useful for me. You know, maybe it is for you as well.
Yeah, it's great. And then within the 5-hour workday, the book club was born. Right. So we read, as a company, we read a book together about once a quarter, and they're typically along the lines of some type of personal development. They're not always business. Occasionally we read finance books, but for the most part, they're personal development books. Right. So that was born within that 5-hour workday. Right?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look back on that. I feel like we've maybe been doing it a little bit longer, but I know for sure what's happened with the 5-hour workday is a lot of the books have been more focused on efficiency and focus and prioritization in our crazy distracted world, right? Cal Newport's Deep Workbook. That's
love it.
Yeah. That's kind of that's a core wisdom for our team, and something that's built very much into our training is, you know, that the importance of that deep work time. The last book we read, right? Peak. It's all about purposeful practice, deliberate practice, skills-based practice. And, you know, this, I don't know, I'm sure there's some listeners or you're very familiar with the book, but it's, gosh, I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but basically he studied the world-class performers, you know, from NBA players to violin players to business people. And what he found was, you know, the best in the world have deliberate, purposeful practice. And what he also found is a majority of them work roughly about 4.5 hours a day, 90 minutes on, you know, 10 minutes hard break, 90 minutes on, 10 minutes hard break. And when I say hard break, no phone, no talking to your mom or your girlfriend or getting on your fantasy football, 90 minutes hard break, you know, done, super focused. And I love that because it really kind of summed up what we do as a business and how we operate on a day-to-day basis.
And it's not just in the book Peak, it is in a lot of the books we've read. So Cal Newport has research that says if you can focus for 4 hours, you have enough willpower. The average person has enough willpower and focus that they can do up to 4 hours a day. So the most successful people have 4 hours a day that they dedicate to one trade. In the book, The One Thing, I mentioned Gary Keller. My cousin, Jay Papazan, co-wrote that book, so I talk about it a lot. They talk about if you can dedicate 4 hours to your one thing, you'll see unbelievable results. And they talk about willpower, how willpower is not always on will call, right? So you run out of willpower.
It's finite, right? Yeah.
So you come in with all this focus in the morning, and after an hour and a half, you're starting to kind of lose focus, and you're more susceptible to distractions, pulling up your cell phone or looking at social media. So what you've taught us to do is to take a break at that time. Work hard for 90 minutes, focused, and as your willpower starts to trail off, take a break. Let your mind recharge, take deep breaths, take a walk around the block, whatever it is that relaxes you. And then you come back in, and it's like you've recharged your battery of willpower, and you can hit it again for another 90 minutes. And we do that throughout the day, and it comes out to exactly 5 hours by doing those 4 blocks with, 10 to 15 minute breaks in between.
You can't redline a V12. And we're all, I would imagine a lot of the listeners of this podcast, they go pretty hard, right? And they're very deliberate, but they're high performers. They really want to succeed. And, you're driving around these V12s, and anybody that's driven a V12 or seen one, they're very, very hard to control. But you can't run. If you redline these things all the time, they're going to break, they're going to crash, they're going to not perform as well. So it's hard. It's hard to stop in the middle of the day and really, take a hard break like that. But I think once you get that discipline in place and you can see how impactful it is, then, you won't miss it. I think where it shows up the most for me, if I redline all day, which I still catch myself doing, I'll wake up 2-3 in the morning and my cortisol levels will be spiking through the roof somehow. But it's because, I've just redlined the whole entire day. Your brain just doesn't settle down, or at least mine doesn't. So.
And then going back to the day before vacation miracle or the surfing Tuesday, like if you've redlined so hard, you don't really have anything left for what you were hoping to use your free time for. You don't have much, willpower. You don't have much brain power left for your family. So it's so important to manage that energy throughout the day and take those breaks. We read a book called Rest several years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that book and how you actually got introduced to the author who featured you in a book?
Yeah. Alex Pang, he wrote the book Rest, and then he had a follow-on book from that recently called Shorter that we were actually featured in it. We're in the introduction, which was pretty exciting. But the concept that Alex talks about, and Alex Stanford PhD. He has his own Shorter Workday consulting company. He's worked with the Microsofts and the Googles of the world. But his main premise or what he teaches, and I can't agree with more, is a lot of times we see rest as the enemy of productivity. And really what he studied and seen time and time again, rest as a partner with productivity. And it's such a hard concept for high performers to really kind of resonate, and just understanding how important that rest period is to people really doing their best job and doing their best work.
Right. It seems counterintuitive with our American work super hard corporate work culture. Right.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to brag about who works the most hours and who takes the least amount of breaks or never takes breaks kind of deal. But it's the complete opposite of that. And Alex does a great job of laying out all the studies, the psychology, the science behind why taking rest, intentional breaks, and also taking vacations and taking, intentional rest on the weekends to recharge produces so much more, just better quality work. And again, I think he even talks about the ideal, going back to the 4.5 hours. He talks about that as well. It kind of reminds me of a lot of famous authors spend 4 hours a day writing. And so guys like John Grisham, he writes for 4 hours a day, and he doesn't really do anything else. He's got guys, admins to do everything else. So he spends 4 hours a day just focused on writing, and manages his rest, and he has a routine that works for him and produces a couple novels a year. So time and time again, it shows that gamble or risk, I think you called it a gamble, this 5-hour workday, really, we're finding out more and more that it's not a huge risk. It's really a way to build a really healthy work culture.
I think so. And I don't propose by any stretch this is the way. I think everybody has their own idiosyncratic version of what works best for them. My sister comes to mind. She's high performer, runs or is in leadership for a top hedge fund. And, she just runs full throttle all day, every day. She loves it, and she's super passionate about it. And, And I really think highly of her because of it. So it's, I feel like this is a way. And again, when we started this, my intention was just kind of share a story, and maybe somebody could learn a thing or two that would allow them to, go to a kid's game stress free, go to a kid's game and leave their phone in the car.
Right. Right.
So,
but I bet there is one thing that she would agree with you on 100% when it comes to time management throughout the day. She would probably agree with you that you and her both work on event time, not time clock time. Event time meaning, like here in Mississippi, we have, dairy farmers. When the cows need to be milked, that's event time. Like you just do it, and you keep your job's done when the job's done. So you're not like clocking in and clocking out. Like I'm clocking in for 8 hours.
No, nobody told the cows we had a time change over the weekend.
Exactly. But would you agree that your sister, super high performer, works crazy hours? I mean, people on Wall Street and these hedge funds are known for working the most hours out of anyone. But you would agree, like she has event time. Like she's there. She's got a lot of stuff to work on. So she has that kind of energy driving that, because she's probably very task oriented or event oriented, versus she's not coming in saying, I'm clocking in at 8 and I'm clocking out at, or I'm coming in at 8 and I'm clocking out at 5. Right.
That's right. She's not trading time for money.
And that's good that you mentioned that, because what you've done is you've really shifted the focus back to time is an asset. And when you start to believe that time is an asset, it's really our most valuable asset, because it's finite. You can lose money and you can always go earn more. You can get more money. You can't go and get more time. You have a finite number of hours in your life. And once they're used up,
that's right.
That's it. You're just not going to get that time back. So treating time that way is another thing I think that creates drive.
Yeah, my middle son is actually he's starting to put a little bit of he's really hard worker at restaurants and whatnot, but he's starting to put some of that money into the market. And last night he put some money into Roblox, and they came out with some earnings report, and he woke up this morning. He worked at a restaurant. He was in the restaurant for 4 hours, and he made $60 in tips. But when he woke up, with pre-trading or whatever, he made $100 on the stock. So it was a cool moment for me for him to share that with me. But it was also a cool moment for me to kind of help him understand you want to be trading your brain power for money, and your thinking for money, and not necessarily your time for money. And how cool is it that, at that age, he's learning how to buy assets that make money for him while he's sleeping. I'm sure he's not going to tell me if it loses $100 tonight, but either way, that's
so good
cool.
Though. I mean, that's such a perfect lesson that you were teaching your son, and it's so true. I mean, he kind of taught me, Alex, and it was a good reminder for me. So that is so good. I think that might be a good place to kind of dock this ship for the show. Unless before we leave, it's kind of customary. Just want to ask you, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of leave the listeners with that's really important to you along, what we talked about today?
Yeah, what occurs to me is, energy management should come before time management, right? Because if you manage your energy right, and you're dialed in on your fundamentals, if you're dialed in on your eating, moving, breathing, sleeping, and then you go to time management. But that energy management, I think it gets lost in the importance of it. And I don't see anything that's more important that impacts positively every aspect of your life. If those are areas, no matter where you are in those areas, to always be thinking about how you can improve it, how you can make it better every day.
That's so good. And I think that will really resonate with a lot of the listeners of Student Student of Intention, a lot of the listeners are very intentional about health, managing energy, and using these things you talked about, sleeping, eating, breathing, movement and rest, and, prayer, meditation, things that impact your ability to perform at a high level. But like you just said, it affects all areas of our life, not just the work bucket. It affects our relationships. It affects our ability to create. So the creativity bucket, and our learning, our ability to comprehend and learn and retain information if we've managed our energy well and are really mindful of that. It's so good. I think it's a perfect way to end the podcast. And then I'm going to be joining you again next week with another episode as your guest host.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.